Hi there and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to show you how to make fire in Photopea using the flame filter, which is built in. So before we go into the flame filter, one thing you need to know is it needs a path first, a pen tool path in order to generate flames. It's very simple. So all I'm going to do for this one is press P for the pen tool, or you can select it manually from the toolbar on the left. Go up to the top left-hand side corner where it says shape and change this to path. I don't know why, but in Photopea, the pen tool seems to default to shape, whereas really you're going to use it mostly for creating paths. So then all I'm going to do is come down to where the logs are in the fireplace. I'm just going to click towards one end of the log, and then I'm just going to click towards the other end. And I'm not going to click anymore because that's fine for what we need. Now I'm going to go to the top left here, the top right, where I've got my paths panel here. And I'm just going to rename the path to fire, just to keep things organized. Now, if you don't have the paths window anywhere available, if you just go up to your window menu at the top, and you'll see that the paths option is down there, so you can just check that, and it will then appear either here or in one of these icons along the toolbar on the right hand side, but it will be there for you to access. So now we've got our path. That's going to act as an emitter for the flames. So the way I'm going to show you to do like a fireplace effect, the flames are going to come up from the line along the length of the line. It'll all make sense in a minute. So I just need to create a new layer. I'm going to call this fire. And this is the layer that our flames are actually going to be generated on. So you just need to make sure your fire path is selected, and you can see it on the screen just by clicking on it. Make sure you're on the blank layer. And now we're going to go up to filter, render, and flame. There are lots of options here, and I'm going to go through them all and give you a quick description, although this isn't an in-depth tutorial on every single option in the flame filter, but I will give you a quick overview for sure. So we'll start on the basic tab, and at the top we've got type, flame type. Let's see now, one flame along path. So as you can see, the fire is sideways in our fireplace here because it's following the length of the path. The path is telling it to start at the bottom and finish at the top, which is not what we want for this. So for this type of fire, we want to change the option to multiple flames, various angle. And what this is going to do is create flames emitting from the line going upwards like you would expect for a fire. But because we've chosen the one that says various angles, if your path was slightly curved or if you did it in a certain shape, they would follow the line of that curve. So now we've set that. Let me just zoom in a little bit on this so we can look at the flames in a bit more detail. Okay, so we've got length here, and that is, as it sounds, it adjusts how tall or short the flames are overall. So you can go click and just play around with this. Don't worry if you like the height, but they're going out of the front of the fire like this, out of the fireplace, because we can mask that out later, no problem. So let's leave this for now. But just before I continue, one very important thing, if you go to the bottom here, you've got quality, draft, low, medium, high, and fine. Now, you probably want to put it on medium, high, or fine for your final image, but they slow Photopea down a lot. So if we have it selected on one of those now, every time we move a slider, it's going to take quite a long time to update. So it's a good idea to keep it on low while you're working, and then you can change it up later if you want to see a little bit better quality. So we'll go down to randomize length here underneath. And as you can see, it just does what it says. It's kind of randomizes the length of some of the fire. Not very useful on its own because you click it, it doesn't give you a different effect. It just keeps showing you the one it did at first. But we'll come back to that later because we can make that work in a better way. Width, again, as you would think, changes the width of the flames. Now, as you can see here, one thing to know is it creates the flames in clusters. So as you can see here, if we make the width really thin, you can see that our fire is actually created from several like mini clusters of fire. And that's just how it generates the flames. So it's just worth knowing. Angle. This will literally put an angle, as you can see, onto the flames. Because we've got the various angle option selected, it puts them all in a different direction. But if we were to change this to just multiple flames path directed, they would all face the same way. And this is quite good for if you've got a fire outdoors and you want to simulate strong wind and it's blowing the flames in one direction, maybe like on a campfire or something. But we're not going to do that for here because it's an indoor fire, so it wouldn't really have that. And interval, this is how close the clusters of fire are to each other. So like we saw earlier, it had like 4 clusters of fire, but we decreased the interval and it crams in more of those like clusters of flames to make a more intense fire. So as you can see here, it's a lot more intense fire. There's loads of flames going on. If we take this up, the interval's going to be bigger, so the fire's going to get sparser until the point where you just have 1 or 2 clusters of like fire, which looks bad. So this is one of those creative points where you can decide how kind of ferocious or intense your fire is, whether it's a really focused fire like that or whether it's a little bit more, just a little bit more of a gentle fire. And I'm going to go for something like that for the moment. Okay, ignore this adapt interval for loops. That's to do with if you're animating them. So we're going to now change over to this advanced tab. And this is where you can affect the flames in quite interesting ways. So we've got this turbulence setting, which is defaulted at 50 for in the middle. And this is, as you can see, if I drag this down, it's less turbulent. So kind of like wind, but it doesn't push everything in the same direction like angle. Like if we take this to 0, it's as if there isn't a single bit of movement in the flames at all, and it'll look really strange. See that? It's just completely bizarre. And if we drag it quite far to the top, you see the flames get very busy and very like fluttering, as if there's, a lot of wind and turbulence, as it suggests. Again, this is a creative point, but I'm going to keep it around 50. Jag. Now, this stands for jagged. So it's how rough the flames are, and it's best described by me actually showing you. So at the moment, they're nice and smooth looking. If we drag up this slider slowly or click it up, you can see the flames are just getting a lot rougher. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see this effect. And if we keep going, you can see they start to really break apart and get all fuzzy and well, jagged, as the name suggests. And what this is good for is if you're simulating fire in the distance. So if you had a shot of, if you wanted to put like a building on fire and it was right into the distance, drag the jag slider up and it will lose the crisp detail of the flames, which you wouldn't be able to see from far away. And you could just imagine this now being a fire on like, on a tall building somewhere far away. But for a fireplace type fire, we're going to drag it down. You can have a little bit in there. It helps to make it a bit more realistic. Opacity, kind of obvious. So 0, you can't see it. And then as you drag it more and more, it gets more intense, more solid, to the point where it actually starts to get like white hot. And if you drag it too far, or maybe not too far for what you're looking at, but if you drag it high enough, it just starts to all get super white and look a bit crazy. So again, to your own tastes, but I'm going to keep this around there. Lines. Now, this is how many individual single flames form each cluster, if that makes sense. So earlier on in the video, we showed how the whole flame effect is made of several like mini clusters of little fires. And this is how many lines are in each cluster. But you don't really need to know that. All you need to know is it's how complex the fire is. So if we drag the lines down, the flames start looking very chunky and very simple, which, depending on what you want, is or isn't a great effect. As you drag the lines or move the line slider up, you can see there's a lot more individual flames in here now, and the flames are getting very complicated and very complex. Again, all these controls are just to give you a little bit of extra adjustment, a bit more control, and just changes the flavour of the fire and the type of the fire. And you could be here for all day playing around with this. It's actually quite fun. I'm just going to zoom out a bit now. Bottom, this relates to how flat and how even the flames are on the bottom of the fire, adjacent to your path. So if I drag this up, it's going to start creating differences between where the flames start at the bottom and where they end at the top. And by the way, this is just a general Photopea tip here to keep things a little bit faster. Instead of dragging the sliders left or right, because then it's slow because it's constantly got to update, it's quite good to just click in advance like I'm doing here instead of dragging it. And it just makes bigger changes and just takes you where you want to be a little bit faster. It's just a little tip. I'm going to keep this quite low because I want the fire to be quite even lit along these logs. By the way, don't worry about the exact position of the flame or the shape, because once we've finished with this filter, you can just adjust it within the main Photopea on its layer, however you like. Okay, so style. This is violent, basically, just really, really overdoes the kind of the jag factor and the other things to just give it a really over the top look. And I just find it's pretty useless, to be honest. Flat. Honestly, I don't know what this is supposed to do, because every time I've tried it, it just makes the flames almost invisible or invisible. So my advice would be to keep it on normal. Shape. Here we've got some other options, and these just slightly alter the shape of the individual lines of fire that the flame's made up from. And you can just, it's something to change and experiment with to see if it gives your fire a little bit more of a characteristic that you like. So I'm just going to leave it on that because I quite like it. Right, I'm going to skip this randomize shape button for a minute. I'm going to go to the bottom and random seed. So what random seed does is it honors all the other settings that you've made. So the length, the width, the jag, the turbulence, it keeps all those the same, or at least within the same parameters. But if you move this around, it just generates different flame variations based on your settings. So sometimes you think, I don't know, and you can play around, you can get one that just, like that looks very even, but I don't really like that. Maybe I want something a bit more uneven. So you just click around in this random seed and it will just give you, lots of variations of similar fires, basically, just so you can pick one that you really like, which is cool. Now, random shape or randomize shape, this one's really interesting. I like this a lot. As soon as you click that button, now every time you tweak any of the other parameters in this filter, including everything in the basic tab, even the quality setting, it will add a random seed onto that setting. So let me show you what I mean. So now if I want to make the flames a bit higher, with that button selected, it won't just make the flames higher, it will make them higher and it will change the seed of the fire to give it a different look. So if you really want to just have play around and just find, you don't know exactly what you're looking for until you see it kind of thing, this is perfect for that. So interval, it's not just changing the interval, it's changing the shape of the flames. And with this mode activated, you can really just click on anything, try change anything, and it will just adjust the flames. It's like very chaotic, but I actually quite like that about it. Like this one now, it's got a little flame on the left-hand side, as if it's just catching the edge of the log, and then the rest are quite uniform, so I really like that. The only downside of having this randomized shape option on is it changes it when you change the quality, which is unfortunate, because now, say I'm really happy with that and I just wanted it in a slightly better quality, if I change that, it will now randomize all the settings as well, so I will lose the shape of that fire. So even if you unclick that, you see it's done it again. So unfortunately, if you feel like you're getting to the closing point of your fire and you're getting close to what you want, it might be worth then trying to change the flame quality up. But do you know what? I think it looks fine. I'm just going to play around a little bit more, see if I can get something I like a little bit more, maybe the angle. Get me this kind of thing. You can get sucked into a wormhole of trying to find the perfect fire. So it comes to a point where you're just going to say, that's fine for me. So I click OK. So after all that, I'm now just going to unselect the path so it doesn't get in the way. So after all that, we now have a fire and it's on a separate layer. So we can do whatever we want to it. We can move it round, we can resize it. And this is good because it gives us options to make it look a little bit more realistic. So at the moment, it kind of looks okay, but I'm going to resize it a little. So I'm going to press Command or Control T for transform. I'm just going to scale this down to actually fit the log a little bit more. I'm going to move it down, not not right on the top of the log, but somewhere like that. And this fire actually does fit within the window, but I'll make it taller to show you what to do if it doesn't. So if you've got a fireplace like this, or if you've got an image where you don't want the flames coming out of a contained area, we can make a very simple layer mask. And in this case, I could just press M for the rectangular marquee tool. I can just draw a selection that's approximately the shape of the fireplace window. And I'll just go to the bottom left here and click on the layer mask icon. And just like that, it's now masked the flames from showing out of that box, basically. So it's just going to keep them within that window. Another thing we can do is the flames out of this filter look okay, but they kind of have a bit of a weird outline around the flames. I don't know if you can see that, but we can combat that by changing the blending mode of the flames layer to screen. Now it knocks out those strange outlines that you may or may not notice on YouTube because of the compression, but it just makes the flames look a bit more realistic, but it does lose the color. So we can bring that back by creating a new hue and saturation layer. And with the hue and saturation layer selected, if you hold Alt and click on it, it will clip it to the fire layer. You can see there the little arrow on the left-hand side of the hue saturation icon, the little downwards arrow. And that just means whatever you change on this hue saturation, it's only going to affect the fire and not anything else in the image. So I'm going to drag the saturation up here, bring a bit more color back into those flames, and you can tweak the other settings if you like for a slightly different color. I think that's fine. So we've got the flames in there. They're kind of the shape we want, but there's something quite major missing from this to make it start looking a little bit more realistic, is there's no color and glow emitted from the flames. So as you can see in there, they're sitting on a log, but there's no glow. There's no color around that would be spilling out onto the things around the fire. You know, it would cast an orange color around it. So we're going to do that easily by double clicking on the fire layer next to the text in the empty space, and it'll bring up our layer styles dialog. Now what we're going to do here is go straight to outer glow. We'll change the blend mode to linear dodge. This works for this particular image because the color's in the background, but for your own image, you may want to play with these settings. I'm going to click on this little color chip here. I'm going to choose a color, one of the more orangey tones from the existing fire. So I'll click on that. Okay, maybe make it a little bit darker. Click OK. And now I just want to make this bigger. So I'm going to go to the size slider. I'm just going to push this out and see how, or I hope you can see how the glow is actually spilling out of the window and actually onto the outside of the fireplace. Now that is fine because in reality, bright lights like this would actually cause like a glow and like a halo to sort of spill over, and you get this light leak kind of effect. So we don't actually have to worry about that. In fact, it enhances the effect. And we can make the opacity a little bit higher. Okay, let's see it on and off. See, that just makes a big difference straight away. So I'm going to click OK on that. So now we've got our fire, we've got our fireplace glow. At this stage, if we want to make it look even more intense, you can try just duplicating the layer. This might be absolutely fine, but if you just click on the fire layer itself, and you can either drag it down to the new layer icon in the bottom, or you can press Command or Control and J to duplicate it. So I'm going to do that. Command, because I'm on a Mac, it's Command. If you're on a PC, it'll be Control. So Command J, and you see it's created another layer. So we've got 2 layers of the fire, and now it's really made it intense. Now that's a bit much for me, so I can drop the opacity down and just find a good balance between the two. Maybe on this second copy, we might not want the outer glow effect on that because it's now a bit too much, but we do want the flames to be a bit more intense. Okay, and now what we can do is make yet another layer from the original, because we want the glow on this third layer. And what this layer is, I'll drag it down to the new layer icon. This is going to be a reflection, basically. Don't take the one that's got the hue saturation clip to it, because that's our main fire. So all we're going to do is click on one of the duplicates, press Ctrl or Command T to apply a transform selection. And we're going to flip vertically. I'm going to drag this down to roughly where it would be reflected in the image. But it's way too sharp at the moment because that floor is making everything diffused. So we just go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and something like that, where you can still see a little bit of detail, but it's all diffused and nice blended into the floor. And then we can just drop the opacity a little bit so it's not so strong. And that looks nice to me. So we'll zoom out, have a little look. So we've got our flames, the glow from the flames. We've got the reflection from the flames to really sell the effect. And we have this layer here, which is just adding a little bit of intensity. And what I would always recommend, even if you're doing a small project, is just name your layers to keep things organized. So even if it's just a short thing for your own reference. So int is like intensity. That's reflection. And that's the main fire. So if you save this and you come back to it, you know exactly what you're dealing with. One last thing, this shot is quite bright, daylight, and flames wouldn't normally be as bright and glowing if in a daylight scenario. So I'm just going to do one last little touch here. Click on the background layer and create a curves adjustment layer just above that. And I'm just going to drag the curve down a little bit, not loads, just a little bit, just to darken the whole room slightly and just make the fire effect a little more appropriate. That's it for now. Please click the like button if you enjoyed this because it really helps the channel out. And please subscribe if you want to be the first to see more content in the future. But for now, I'm off. I'll see you in the next one.